hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. 1 minute. There is some problem occurred again.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, sir.
Yeah,
Fine.
sir.
You
So,
can see me, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sir, we have a
Sir, we have
formal
a
inaugural
formal.
function. Then you can share your screen
Sure.
and start. Shall we?
Okay.
You can start.
Good morning,
Good
ladies
morning,
and
ladies
gentlemen.
and gentlemen.
On behalf
On
of the
behalf of
President
the
of Children's Education Society, Chairman of Oxford Educational Institutions, Management, Principal, Staff and students of the Oxford College of Engineering, I, Dr. K. Valarmati, Associate Professor, Department of Biotechnology, deem it a great pleasure and privilege in welcoming you all to the 5 days International Virtual Symposium on an Insight into Biotechnological Applications. This conference brings together experts and students from science and engineering and research community and explores the technological advancement in biotechnology engineering. With high respect, I introduce the visionary educationist late Vidyashri S. Narasaraju Garu, the founder of Children's Education Society. So we would like to start this event in the remembrance of our chairman, and we remember him forever, and his blessings are there on us in all our endeavors. It is our tradition to seek the blessing of the Almighty before the start of any auspicious event. So let us start the event with invocation song.
गजानना ॐ गजवदना गजानना ॐ गजवदना हेरम्बा गजानना हेरम्बा गजानना गजानना ॐ गजवदना गजानना ॐ गजवदना पाहि पाहि गजानना पाहि पाहि गजानना पार्वतीपुत्रा गजानना गजानना ॐ गजवदना गजानना ॐ गजवदना मूषिकवाहन गजानना मोदकहस्ता गजानना मूषिकवाहन गजानना मोदकहस्ता गजानना गजानना ॐ गजवदना गजानना ॐ गजवदना गजवदना
We have an achiever and leader who is none other than Sri SNVL Narasimha Raju Garu, the chairman of Oxford Educational Institutions. I would like to take this moment to introduce our chairman. It's my privilege to welcome Dr. Aravind A.S., Principal, and Dr. Amarnath K. of the Oxford Director of the Oxford College of Engineering, Bangalore. So, about our department, Biotechnology Engineering is a multidisciplinary having applications in multiple fields including healthcare, agriculture, food industry, and environmental issues. It has encompassed all the fields of life and technology and is currently a multi-billion enterprise. This rapidly advancing branch was initiated in our college in the year 2003. Since then, the department is growing vertically in terms of academics, research, co-curricular and extracurricular activities, facilitating the all-around growth of students. The department is permanently affiliated to VTU and has been accredited by National Board of Accreditation and NAC. The department has banked ranks in both UG and PG programs. The department has excellent infrastructure involving well-maintained classrooms and highly equipped laboratories, which are designed for today's technological challenges. The department is doing outstanding research work in VTU approved Research and Development R&D Center. The department has established unique research facilities, namely Center for Natural Product Research with financial assistance from VTU, AICTE, New Delhi, and DAE BRNS, DRDO, New Delhi, etc. And then Center for Computational Medicinal Chemistry in Drug Discovery with financial assistance from Vision Group of Science and Technology, Government of Karnataka. And Center for Bioremediation with financial assistance from Naval Research Board, DRDO, New Delhi, and DBT, BIRAC, New Delhi. In these R&D centers, several funded research projects have already been conducted and continuing research grants have been received from various national and state government funding agencies like DBT, BIRAC, DRDO, NRB, DAE, BRNS, AICTE, VGST, KFIST, VTU, KSCST, and NIF, etc. These projects are instrumental in strengthening our core research activities, which are beneficial to both students and staff. They have also generated sufficient amounts of funds to equip our department with necessary instrumentation and other requirements. At present, the department is working on the development of bioremediation kit for the remediation of oil spill and degradation of toxic hydrocarbon under the financial assistance of DBT BIRAC PACE scheme, under the guidance of Dr. B.K. Manjunath, the Professor and Head, Department of Biotechnology. Department is also working on developing polyherbal formulations to reduce the toxic effect of radiation during radiotherapy under the financial assistance of DAE BRNS, New Delhi, under the guidance of Dr. B.K. Manjunath, Professor and Head, Department of Biotechnology. The department is actively engaging in extending consultancy services to validate ethnomedicinal class and traditional medicinal plants under the financial assistance of NIF and under the guidance of Dr. B.K. Manjunath. Highly qualified and seasoned faculties who are capable of nurturing the overall growth of students and also actively involved in conducting various programs and activities in the department. The department is proud to state that a domestic patent is filed and a bioremediation product, PetroSap, is developed to address the bioremediation of hydrocarbons and oil spill with financial assistance under BIRAC. It gives me immense pleasure in introducing today's expert lecture, that is Chief Guest Dr. Gurumurthy Hedge. He is a professor, CNR Rao Chair Professor, Center for Nanomaterials and Displaced BMSCE. And he has total impact factor so far 470 out of 150 journals. He has published more than 150 papers, and then he has 40 conference proceedings, and the total patents applied is 20 and then granted is 3, and he has published 5 books and book chapters, and he has been a journal editor for 3 journals and reviewer for 26 journals, and he has a total grants of money of $2.3 millions, and he has total awards of 66. He has a pre-commercialization fund of 1, and he has signed MOU with 5 prestigious institutions and 1 MOA signed and 3 NDA signed. And he did his PhD in physics from CSIR Laboratory, India in 2007 from photo-induced effects in liquid crystals. And what the major awards what he has received is DST Nano Mission Grant Winner Award in 2018, DST Early Career Award 2017 from DST SCRB, Grant Winner of DST Nano Mission 2018, Sir C.V. Raman Young Scientist from Government of Karnataka 2017, Best Publication Award from VGST Government of Karnataka 2017, Elsevier Emerging Investigator Award 2017, Merck Outstanding Research 2011 in South Korea, Best Invention in Asia Pacific Rim 2014, Pittsburgh, USA, and DST Young Career Award in 2016. And he has also received gold medals in USA, Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, etc. On behalf of the management, staff, students of the Department of Biotechnology, I would like to take this opportunity to extend a warm welcome to our webinar, Dr. Gurumurthy Hedge. Welcome, sir. Now,
hello, good morning.
Good
Can you hear
morning,
me?
sir. A hearty welcome, sir, to our department.
So, okay, I'm sharing my screen now.
Oh, 1 minute. And also, I extend my heartfelt welcome to all the participants from all over India. So now I request Dr. B.K. Manjunath, Professor and Head, Department of Biotechnology, to speak few words about this International Virtual Symposium.
Very warm good morning to each and everybody, and hearty welcome to Dr. Gurumurthy to the
Yeah, thank you, sir.
International Virtual Symposium. It gives me immense pleasure in inviting Dr. Gurumurthy to the department because he's behind us in each and every growth of our department. Whenever we request him for an internship or a student project, he's open to allow our students to go and work in his lab, and we are grateful to him. And thank you, sir, for your kind support. And this virtual symposium is mainly aiming at providing a platform, techno platform for the students, faculties, and other researchers to interact with a renowned scientist like Dr. Gurumurthy, so that you can identify a multidisciplinary platform for your career. So with this intention, we have invited the many scientists throughout the globe, and we are providing a techno platform for your interaction. And this is the second day and the second webinar that we are hosting. And I hope these sessions will help you in framing your career. Thank you for your active participation, and I am looking forward for your active participation in the forthcoming events also. Thank you, Dr. Gurumurthy, sir. You can
Thank
take
you,
the
sir.
session.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Please share your screen, sir.
Can you see the screen?
No, not yet. Yeah, it's coming. Yeah, sir.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, then yeah, screen is visible, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning to everyone. And first of all, I thank Dr. Manjunath and biotechnology faculties at the Oxford College of Engineering for inviting me for this webinar series. And it's always Oxford College of Engineering is not very new to me, because I have been to their campus several times to meet Dr. Manjunath and other faculty members. So thank you so much for inviting. And today I'm going to talk about waste to wealth nanoparticles and its biomedical application. As the term you can see, the waste to wealth itself is we are taking the waste material from the environment, and then we are converting them into a useful nanoparticles. And these kind of nanoparticles are having great application in biomedical and energy, water, and all. And we are actively working on several things, which I'm going to explain in the later stage. And this is our the very short introduction about our laboratory. It's a very unique laboratory. We started in 2 years back, we named it as Center for Nanomaterials and Display. You can see. So you can see the title. We have been working on nanomaterials, which is the topic of today's discussion. And also, we are also experts in display technology, where we are making a novel material for new generation displays, which is called as a photo alignment displays. So we have been working in, you can see the slides you can make out. We have been working on liquid crystal displays, where we published nearly 67 Web of Science papers. Then we are having a dedicated chemistry laboratory inside this center, where we are synthesizing our own materials for our requirement. And we are also working on photonics, especially for optical storage devices. And if you come to this side, we are synthesizing nanomaterials from the waste. There we have published 12 papers on this concept. And we are working on supercapacitors, where nearly 6, now it's almost grown to 12 papers. I have not updated this slide. And also we are working on biotechnology aspect, where we are taking these kind of nanomaterials for antimicrobial and some kind of cancer cell detection, all kinds of works. That's a new tech area for us. We are slowly developing, because our materials, we found that they are highly active and they are potential to use them for biotechnology application. So that's the main thing about this one. Apart from this, recently we started working on composite material where we are mixing our material with epoxy resin to strengthen the material properties. And also we started working on catalysis, where we can able to reduce the cost of the available catalysis in the market, where our material is excellent platform to use them as a catalyst for many kind of reaction, like Suzuki-Miura reaction or any kind of reactions. You can use it for such kind of studies. The attractive feature here is it will reduce the cost of the available catalysts. So this is the major equipments of the lab. I haven't put my lab images. You are please welcome whenever you get the time. Please come to the BMS College of Engineering campus, where we have a dedicated laboratory called as Center for Nanomaterials and Display, where I listed some equipments. Some of the equipment are not listed because some of them are very new equipment. I have not listed here. So we have a class 1000 clean room for fabrication setup, where we are fabricating the high resolution liquid crystal displays for high-end application. Recently, we got the project from ISRO working on beam steering antennas, where we are making beam steering antenna based on the liquid crystals, which are very helpful, which needs the class 1000 clean room facilities. We're also having the electrochemical workstation, which is a 4-channel electrochemical from Autolab, where we have a complete coin cell fabrication setup for energy storage devices, completely funded by Department of Science and Technology Nanomachine Division. So we have a coin cell, then crimping machine, disc cutter, coin cell disassembling, then battery analyzer, 8 batteries you can test at the same time. Then we have a pulse current rectifier to quote on the current, quote on the one conducting material on the other conducting material to reduce the cost of the devices. Then we have a electroplating, etching, all those things. Electrocoating is there. Then digital viscometer, coin cell crimper. Then if you come to the chemistry side, we have a dedicated chemistry lab with all the fume hoods with laminar airflow, then vacuum ovens. Then we have a photo alignment system, then UV visible spectroscopy, tilt angle measurement, then photoisomerization setup, then polarizing optical microscope, then hot stage for conducting the polarizing optical microscope images with respect to the temperature. Then we have a tube furnace to synthesize the nanoparticle. Then we have an optical bench setup for all the optical facilities. Then we have helium neon laser for measuring the birefringence or anything related to the light. Then we have some kind of polishing machines, rubbing machines, then several microscopes other than the polarizing optical microscope. Optical setup where you can apply the electric field at one side and optical field on the other side, and with respect to temperature, you can see how material is changing their shapes and how it is behaving, mainly for the liquid crystal application. Then we have the sophisticated soldering facilities, then Millipore water purifier system, then again UV cabinet, water purification system, nano display library is the dedicated one, then roller press machine, then air compressors, some kind of facilities which is required for display this one. Nano side, we are mainly on the application side we are having, because some of the nano characterization like SEM, then FTIR, XRD, those things we will do it with our BMS central lab facilities. So I will just today talking about some kinds of introduction to nano, then some facts and figures. Then I will mainly touch upon our work on this bio-waste area. Then I will tell about what kind of application. Mainly here I am concentrating today on biomedical applications only. So when you talk about nano, the size is very important, because as the material reduces in size, it gives a lot of advantages, whether it takes the electric field, optical field, magnetic field, whatever these things, the application is enormous. So here I'm showing a very small video. See, you see that if you are in 1980, you can see bottom year is changing. If you are in 1980, I'm sitting on top of your table and you don't have any space to write any notes, because you have a telephone at one end, fax machine, then books, then photos, then you have newspapers, then all kinds of radio, all kinds of gadgets. And as the year passes, one by one, these application is put inside the laptop. You can see as the year passes, your table is almost clean, so you can write everything. See, and today, whatever the application I listed in the above is everything inside the laptop. So it is estimated that If in 1980s, if you want to carry out all your gadgets with you, you have to take at least 250 kilograms of luggage with you. That's thanks to nanotechnology, which made us reality that you are carrying 750 grams of mobile phone, which is carrying all your 750 kilograms of luggage. That's the power of digital platform. So we are working on this area to improve the nano layers exist in them, because there is a 2 layers where the latest technology is called as photo alignment technology. So we are working on those technology to make it a low cost technology for the display industries. And this is how, if such kind of technology comes to the market, how the device looks like. You can see completely a flexible plastic TV, which has been presented by the LG in a recent exhibition. And you can see, you can just make it like a complete rollable TVs. So you can see, you can just rollable and put it in the bag, and then you can just take it with you. And you can see the wide viewing angle at all the angles. You can see the quality. So this can be done either with LCD or OLED. And this is another kind of application where you can put liquid crystal enabled materials for window screen. You can see when light is off, it goes to the completely opaque state, and when it is on, it comes to the transparent state. This is only the glass is coated, nothing else. Liquid crystal enabled glass is coated here, and you can use your, whenever you want to conduct a meeting room, you can do it like this. When you don't want meeting, you can just make it as a transparent. So this is the one of the humanity's top 10 problem. Usually we think that whenever problem comes, we always think that the population is the biggest problem. But according to the World Health Organization, the population is the 10th biggest problem. But the first problem is energy, water, food, environment, poverty, and terrorism and war, disease, education, democracy. So the mankind wants to know, because now the world is changing so much, because they want to know everything more and more about less and less time. That means the nanotechnology, which is locally, instantaneously, because we don't have that much patience to wait. Whenever we want to click the button, it should come immediately. So we should be very interactive so that we can feel that we are just interacting with them. It should be analytically and globally. So the solution for all these things is the nanotechnology. Having said that, there's a very famous statement that people do not buy the technology, they buy the product. If we go to any markets, we never ask for give me the technology. We always ask for give the products. So it's estimated that it always says that if you make a product, make product for the poor people. Because anyway, rich people will buy, whether it is costlier, whether it is cheaper, rich people will anyway buy. But if you make a technology for the poor people, then you can cover the broad spectrum of the audience. So that is possible only with the small particles, that is the nanoparticle, because nanoparticle is having a huge impact. And when material becomes smaller and smaller, it is having enormous properties with respect to its porosity, pore size, and whatever the, like surface area, which is very important factor for nanotechnology, all those things. So why nano is so much discussed area nowadays? Because if you take medical field, energy, agriculture, displays, others, many branch of science and technology uses nanotechnology for their devices. Especially in medicine, nowadays many medical devices are made up of nanotechnology. Because of that, we are able to afford to purchase those devices. Because earlier, each devices cost some 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs and all. But now, many treatments are available for 1,000, 2,000 rupees, which is because of nanotechnology, because people can afford those kind of devices. So nano is new, but only the term nano is new, because you can see this figure. This is called as Lycurgus chalice cup. It is presented in 4th century AD, where the nanoparticles were already existed. So you can see this glass contains the 40 parts per million of gold and 300 parts per million of silver. So when you put the light on this kind of cup, the cup will change its color because of the fluorescent properties of the nanoparticle. But during that time, they didn't know that whatever they put is a nano in nature. They just thought it's some kind of a magic. Only few people can do such kind of magic. But now we have a sophisticated technologies to tell that whatever you have adding is nano in nature. That's why nano is not a new word, but now we have sophisticated technology to tell that it is nano in nature. So it's a very old technology. Many people are using nanoparticles for various applications. Even if you visit Mysore Palace, so many material with the fluorescent properties, they're all made up of nanoparticles. So why nanoparticles is so discussed in the field? Because of this slide, you can see the nanoparticles and its application. So if you see the different kinds of application, for example, if you take textiles at the top, and you can just go back side of the textiles, you can see that these nanoparticles are used in technical textiles, medical textiles, the natural polymer hybrid, electroconducting textiles, anti-stain textiles, wound dressing, in especially biomedical, drug control releases, when biocomposites used by nanomaterials, wound dressing, then cancer therapy, drug delivery, imaging, antibacterial, IR contrast agents, MRI contrast, then hyperthermic treatment, molecular tagging, bone graft, dental ceramics. Every branch of science and technology uses nanomaterials for its application. So many nanoparticles are used in many kinds of application, and soon we are able to get every product made up of nanotechnology. So how it changes our future? So when nano comes to the picture, then factories will be very minimal. You don't need huge factories to fabricate such kind of things. It's in a very small scale factories enough to make this kind of technology. And customization will be very normal, because since you are using nanoparticle, you don't need to customize too much. And affordability is very easy. So because cost of the device reduces drastically. Not much repair techniques, because it's a very simple, and because video instruction, you can do all the repair things. Whole sets of industries will be eliminated, and whatever industries comes, they are coming extremely fast, because these devices are very fast, and already remote control devices available everywhere because of the Internet of Things. Now, because of nanotechnology, all these devices are applicable to all household or offices. So when I said all these things, why innovations is very important. You can see, if you see on the left side, you can see that the lady is the skull you can see. But if I zoom this portion, the lady is sitting in front of the mirror. The research is nothing but going from left side to the right side. If you want to know more about this nanotechnology, you have to zoom the particular subject, go deeper into the subject, then you can see the real part of the subject. So nano is all about going deeper into the material. When you go deeper and deeper into the material, you will see the real application of the material. So that's why innovations are very important. So there's a lot of nanoparticle exists. You can see the nano capsules, nanofibers, nanowires, fullerenes, all those things. And the new addition is nanospheres, which has been discussed for last 10 to 15 years. And then nowadays, a lot of application coming from such kind of nanospheres. So these kind of nanoparticles are excellent material for cancer therapy. You can see, I hope this video I can play. Yeah, you can see the nanoshells which can kill the tumor cells selectively. You can see the middle one is the cancer cell, and nanoparticles comes here, and you can shine the light to that. So it will attack only the cancer cell, and it won't attack the other cells which are very intact. So these are the molecular imaging malignant lesions. You can see the ferric oxide nanoparticles for foot here, and which will kill only the cancer cell. It won't affect the other healthy cells. I will skip this. This is now. So this is the only thing is why bio-waste materials are very important, because I told today's talk is all about waste to wealth for biomedical application. When I'm telling waste to wealth, these terminology should be very clear to us, because when you synthesize the nanoparticle, if the pore size is 0.5 to 2 nanometer, it's called as micropores material. If they are having 50 to 1000 micrometer, they are called as macropores. And in the middle, which is 2 to 50 nanometer, is called as mesoporous. And most of the mesoporous nanoparticles, most of the nanoparticle from bio-waste material is coming under the mesoporous region, which is from 2 to 50 nanometer. And when you have such kind of nanoparticles, you have a lot of advantages, like gives a very large surface area. When you have large surface area, your Absorption ability is very good. So you can get the very high zeta potential for biomedical application, because that's what you want to see, that they won't dissolve. You want them to be dispersed very well, and they should stay in the dispersion state for a very long time. And you can use them for carbon dioxide absorption. Then synthesize is very easy, and bulk production is easy. That's a very important thing, because if you want nanoparticle in a tons of scale, you have to invest billions of money for that. So instead of that, this waste to wealth technology, you don't need to invest much. It's a very cost-effective technology, and they are very good for specific capacitance, energy, water, whatever the application you take care. So this is I'm sorry, this slide is a little bit clumsy. So you can see why the nanoparticles we started in our group, because of this Singapore burning phenomenon. You can see every year Singapore is affecting with environmental pollution from the oil palm estate burning. So whenever they put the fire to oil palm estate, because they usually put fire to 10,000 hectares or 20,000 hectares of big land. So whenever they put fire to that, the immediate next neighbor is Singapore. So Singapore is badly affected from this. So we thought that why can't we take such kind of oil palm waste and convert them into a nanoparticle. So our discussion is supported by these kind of literature surveys, where you can see there's a people who have worked on bamboo sawdust, durian shell, walnut, and cotton stalk, wheat, sugarcane, bagasse, watermelon peel. So many people are working on this field. They used to make carbon nanospheres from these kind of waste materials. So we thought that we went to find out how much waste is produced, and we were astonished to see these figures. The oil palm biomass is produced 73 million tons of waste every year. And there's another kind of waste which is called a sago hampas. Whatever the notebook paper, all the notebooks you are taking, newspaper, everything, all these things are mainly made up of sago hampas tree. So when you are making these kind of papers from this tree, 50 to 110 tons of waste is produced. And these waste, they just give the fire and they will remove these things. So if you take such kind of waste and convert them into a useful material, you can really helping the environment. You are not only reducing this unprecedented burning procedure, but you can use them for high quality applications. So this is when you are talking about bio-waste material, you are very much sure about their composition. You can see the oil palm EFB, that is the fibers, and then oil palm frond and oil palm trunk. So although they are from the same category, but you can see that the cellulose content varies a lot. When you take oil palm frond, it is 40 to 50%. Oil palm fibers is 43 to 65, whereas oil palm trunk, it is very less, 29 to 37. And again, hemicellulose, holocellulose, then lignin, xylose, ash. Particularly, I'm telling about lignin. The lignin content of the bio-waste material in many of the bio-waste is extremely low. And this is a very one particular plant, oil palm, where lignin content is nearly 20 to 21% for frond, then 18, 20, then 13, 13. So it's very high lignin content. This is so important when you are working on bio-waste material and making waste to wealth kind of application. So where you are 100% sure that your lignin content in the bio-waste material is extremely high. If you don't have such kind of high lignin content, you end up with a nanoparticle, but they are not useful for very high-end application. So you can see there is a lot of report on hemicellulose. You can see some people got the lignin percentage of 25 from Malaysian group and 22 for Indonesian group, and again 18 from this. You can see the literature, and again 9 India. Srikala et al. And Law et al. Published in 2007 and 1997%. They got 19% in these kind of bio-waste material. So what do these words mean? You can see you already know this. I'm just giving a brief introduction to two. That cellulose is a polysaccharides of glucose. Then lignocellulose is a part of cell wall, intimately associated with the lignin. And lignin is nothing but the amorphous polymer, and they are the very important part. Why I'm stressing my words lignin again and again, and I will tell you in the latest slide why this word is very important. They are amorphous polymer that provides the rigidity, cementing material between cellulose and forming cell wall. Then hemicellulose is again polysaccharide, less complex than cellulose, easily hydrolyzable to monosaccharides. And holocellulose is nothing but made up of cellulose and hemicellulose, except lignocellulose and other extracts. So when we did the EDAX of that, you can see the EDAX is the elemental composition of such kind of nanoparticles. You can see the precursor, which is before making nanoparticle, where carbon is 62%, oxygen is 36%, and silicon is 1.2%, and calcium is 1.6%. And when you did the pyrolyzed, that is, we did the nanoparticle at a higher temperature like 700, 800, 900, 1000, you can see carbon percentage increases with respect to the temperature. So you can see at the 1000 degree, you will get only carbon and oxygen. All other elements will go away. So you have 84% of carbon, which is pretty good for application point of view. When they are synthesizing the nanoparticle in the literature, people have used various methods like CVD, laser ablation, spray pyrolysis, all those things. But in all the methods, the precursor used is petroleum based, which is not one thing is there is an environmental impact on that, and the very complicated procedures you have to follow. And the bigger disadvantages is you cannot produce in the large amounts, and cost of production is extremely high. So we did a very simple setup, which is called as a pyrolysis with the tube furnace, where we put our sample in the middle, where the temperature is very uniform, and we put the nitrogen gas as the inert gases, and we put our, you can see on the top side, we took the oil palm, we crushed into a powders like 62 micrometer size, which is that's the standard size used for nanoparticle production. You put that 62 micron inside the furnace, and you have to play with the heating and cooling temperatures. And once this is done, you will get a very fine carbon powder, which you can see that. But the question is, why I sold that we have to use temperatures like 700, 800, 900,000? How we have to determine the temperature? The first thing is you have to take a precursor and you have to subject the precursor for thermogravimetric analysis, where you can see the weight reduction taking place. And you can see that initially weight loss is there, where all the lignocellulosic content is going to reduce its weight. And then as the temperature passes, like you can see at 600 degree, almost 80 to 85% weight loss is taking place. And above 600 degree until 1000 degree, it is very flat curve. That means all the volatile components is burnt away, and you will get only the pure carbon there. So that means the 600 to 1000 degree is an ideal temperature to synthesize a nanoparticle. That's why I told you we synthesized it 700, 800, 900, 1000. So as you increase the temperature, the graphitic nature of the temperature, graphitic nature of the material is increasing. So your material is become purer and purer. That's why you will get better and better carbon percentage at higher temperature. So when you see that the fully degradation takes place 650, and again, if you do the FTIR, so FTIR says that the silicon peaks present in the OPL at 1409, that is a very special. I will tell you why the silicon present is there. They can see 1409, 1053, and 655. They are presenting to the silicon. And if you want to more details about it, you can go to our paper published in ChemCom in 2014 on this. Then we subjected the precursor to the XRD, and you can again see that the silicon, the peaks appear at 1100202440. They are nothing but belongs to the silicon planes. Then again, we subjected to the FESM EDAX. Again, we got the various percentage of this one. You can see the silica percentage is 13% in particular of this OPL. It's a very high for any bio-waste material that I can list it here. Silica content 13%. Why this 13% important, which you will come to know very soon. And then we made a nanoparticle. Then once we make a nanoparticle, then we have to characterize in various techniques to prove that the synthesized particle is nanoparticle. First, we did XRD, and you can see the very sharp peaks, which is again surprised us, because whenever you synthesize nanoparticle from the bio-waste, you always end up with the amorphous peaks. You never get crystalline peaks. But in this particular OPL, you ended up with very beautiful crystalline peaks. You can see here at 500, 600, 700 we did, where very beautiful crystalline peaks you got, which is 002, which is 2 theta equal to 26 degree, which is indicating of the carbon, because carbon peaks present at that angle. Then again, we subjected to FTIR of those things, and FTIR again tells that you can see the, instead of silica peaks, which is present before making nanoparticle, now it is C double bond C of graphene material. That means your material is carbon is going towards graphitic, which has been evident from the FTIR that you are getting C double bond C peaks, which is characteristic of the graphene material. Then we again subjected to Raman spectra, and Raman spectra again showed the characteristic at D, G, and G prime, which is the nature of the porous carbon nanoparticles, where you can see the Raman features here. Then again, we subjected them to the FESM IDAX, and you can see these very beautiful images. I just highlighted one of the image B highlighted. You can see very beautiful spherical images and very identical structure. You can see they are very nice, about 20 to 30 nanometer range they are coming, and very beautiful this one spherical structure. So we proved that the material we synthesized is carbon nanoparticle and the size is spherical in nature. Yet I have not told they are porous or not. And again, carbon percentage is increasing here. Then we subjected again to the transmission electron microscope just to prove that the material is porous or not. Here you can see there is a lot of layers. There is a very smooth layers you can see here, which is a porous and spherical. So TEM says that the material you made is spherical and they are also porous in nature, like graphitic layers. How you can see here also, you can see there is a porous structure present in such kind of materials. So this is another one. So when you have such kind of nanoparticle, because there is a lot of people where will create the negative environment around you. So that's the very beautiful statement. How others see you is not important, because how you see yourself is very important. You can see the lady is seeing herself, the old lady seeing her image, which is a very young new lady. So this is how it says. The research is all about how you see yourself means everything, because there is so many people telling negative things about our research. But if we have a confidence about our research, we will find the solution for our materials. So then the question is, we have to explain, because we synthesized the nanoparticle, we proved that they are nano in nature, we proved that they are spherical in nature. The question is why they are exhibiting the nanospheres, because anybody can take bio-waste material, they can synthesize. But the reason is because most of the editors will ask high impact factor journal, they will ask the reason how you are telling that your material is nanospheres. So then we did some kind of silica based studies, because why we are getting nanoparticle nanospheres. Then we found that our synthesis method is a soft template method. So here we found the literature, because silica is 13%, which is very high. And there is a similar report published in 2013. We have not worked on similar kind of material, but he worked on some kind of other materials. But he also used the template approach, and we also follow the template approach. So template approach, since before making the nanoparticle, silica is porous in structure and silica is present in lignin. I already told lignin percentage in these kind of material is nearly 30%. That is a huge. In 30%, 14% is silica. So we all know that silica is porous in nature. So when silica is porous in nature, so silica created the porous template there. So when you burn such kind of material, the porous material is burnt and porosity is already there, but the silica goes away during high temperature, but carbon will comes and sit in the silica place. It's as if like one seat is in class, seat is there, the teacher is coming, sit on that chair and finish the class and going. The properties of the chair remains the same, but teachers are changing. Similar thing happening here. The properties of the template remains the same, because it's a porous property. Remains there, but only the changes occurring is the carbon. Carbon comes and sits on the porous silica, and carbon becomes porous. And this argument we put it, and it has been happily accepted by the editor. And they told us this is what happens for such kind of bio-waste material. And then again, we thought that whether such kind of argument holds good for all the bio-waste material. Then for our surprise, we did experiment on oil palm leaves, and we explained that such kind of argumentation holds good, because this is a template approach. Then we did similar experiment on sago hampas. We synthesized the nanoparticle. We got the porous structure, everything. But for our surprise, for sago hampas, this porosity doesn't, this kind of template approach doesn't hold good, because there lignin content is less than 2% and silica content is less than 1%. So then definitely there is no question of silica act as a template for this. But here Lignocellulose material act as a template for the formation of carbon nanospheres, which is confirmed by the glycosidic linkage, not from the earlier explanation. Here, glycosidic linkage is responsible for creating such kind of templates. So that has been proved by the zeta potential, because zeta potential of the oil palm leaves are slightly less compared to Sagohumpus. That means the porous nature is very important, because sometimes you are not required to be very high porous material to make biomedical applications. Biomedical application, you need a very high zeta potential. Whereas in energy application, you need a very good surface area. But for biomedical, reasonable surface area with good porous values is sufficient, but they should have very high zeta potential. So that's why whenever you choose biomaterial, the explanation towards why they are porous nanoparticles is completely different. You have to find out. So if you find out your own reasons to explain for this kind of bio-waste material, then you can publish in high impact factor papers. Then again, whenever we are talking about bio-waste material, we are always interested in surface area, because people are always think that surface area is a dominant factor when you are talking about bio-waste materials. So then we did surface area studies, and surface area studies again proved that the 400, 600, we got surface area of 30 and 64, and for Sagohumpus and all palm we got like 9, 32, 37. If you see any nanoparticle person, if they are looking at this surface area, they will laugh at your results, because people are talking about 1,000, 2,000 meters square per gram for the surface area, and ours is extremely low. Then we again got disappointed, because we did all our experiment, we did all the characterization, and we found the reason why they are nanospheres, but surface area is really disappointing result for us. Then we thought that this kind of bio-waste material is not suitable for any application, because people are always fascinated about high surface area for high-end application. But for our surprise, we thought that why can't we try one energy application like supercapacitors. Then we did one supercapacitor electrodes, and we did supercapacitor studies. But for our surface, for our surprise, we got excellent specific capacitance value, which is the second highest reported in the world on bio-waste material. That again got some kind of interest. Why surface area is low and specific capacitance is high? Because they're all directly connected. If surface area is high, definitely the specific capacitance should be higher. Then we back calculated using the specific energy data, CV data, we back calculated the surface area. Again, surprised that when you back calculate the surface area, that surface area is very high. So that means material surface area is high, but somehow our BET is not showing that kind of surface area. Then again, we find out why such kind of difference in surface area taking place in the same material with different methods. Then we found that such kind of carbon nanospheres, they are always coming as an aggregation. They are not coming as a graphene layer where you can peel off one layer by one layer. But here they are coming as a aggregated, and they are intact. And they are also exhibiting very smooth surfaces. The working on bio-waste material based carbon nanospheres is extremely difficult. And whenever you are measuring such kind of surface area, they always measure in aggregation. So that's the reason the surface area is always decreasing, because you are coming like an island kind of several molecules there. So it's not easy to measure the surface area of such kind of bio-waste aggregated smooth surfaces. So that's the reported, supported by many literature which has been published earlier. And again, same kind of report, we put it in our paper, and then editor accepted that yes, this is how the bio-waste material surface area is always lower. This one. And now we already solved this problem, and now already we got surface area like 3,000 using bio-waste material, because we did some modification in our synthetic procedure to increase the surface area of the nanoparticles. So why it is so special? I already told they are coming on 2 to 50 nanometer. If you calculate the pore sizes of these material, they are coming on 2 to 50 nanometer. They are mesopores. So as already told, the applications are enormous. You can do a lot of things on such kind of bio-waste material, because they are from energy, water, and health. And so far we worked on nearly 25 bio-waste material, and we synthesized, and nearly 15 bio-waste material we reported with various applications, and 10 bio-waste material under the pipeline we are working on different applications to publish in journals, and we are actively working on those applications. And every time we wanted to see that, is it possible to use such kind of biomaterials for the different application? Like one paper target about supercapacitor, one on symmetric, one on asymmetric supercapacitor, one on solid electrolyte, one on antimicrobial, one on targeted drug delivery. Some kind of changes we want to bring. So we need a lot of collaborators. If anybody interested in such kind of studies where they want to work with us, we are happy to supply such kind of nanomaterial with all the results, so that we can together bring new application to the market. So we already published a lot of papers on energy, water, and health is the new area for us. We have published only 4 to 5 papers on this. There's a lot of potential for such kind of nanomaterials because they are all excellent, highly dispersing material. And we already studied some of the biomedical, which I'm showing you now. So in energy, we are using it for supercapacitor catalysis, and also recently for the curing agent. And we are working on wastewater, dye removal, heavy metal, and also we are working on electrochemical sensors. It's an excellent material for electrochemical sensing. We're also working on hand sanitizers for such kind of materials, and also we are working for various applications. So when I'm talking about biomedical application, you all know that you need a very high Zito potential. And you can see oil pump. We measured all the bio-waste. We are here. I'm showing only the results of few materials. Here I'm showing on the oil pump material. You can see the zeta potential value is minus 32 millivolt. We can see this one, zeta potential. It's a very high dispersion ability. And we we tagged this material with the coumarin, which you usually use in a biomedical application because it's an environmental friendly and non-toxic dye. So that's why we tagged with coumarin. You can see the before tagging, you can see the FESM picture of the nanoparticle. And after tagging, you can see that there is a new material K, which is a sulfur. So sulfur is not present in our earlier material, but sulfur existed only after tagging with the nanoparticle. So which again suggested that, because coumarin contains the sulfur, which again suggested that it is completely tagged in the structure. So then we did fluorescence microscope studies, which is again with the help of collaborators, because I'm not an expert in the biomedical field. So again, we did the fluorescence microscope studies. We randomly the cancerous cells, like we chose the UMR 106 osteoblast cell line, which we did you can see the phase contrast images, and also cell treated with CNS, which is merged phase contrast image, and also which is fluorescence phase contrast image. They are all showing the excellent result. Again, we did cytotoxicity assay, which is very important, because whenever you're talking about application, you have to make sure that your material is non-toxic in nature. And then again, we choose the different kinds of cell lines. And they are not perfect cell lines, because those are all the available cell lines with us. So that's why we choose this. That's why I told I need a collaborator who can able to study the particular cell lines, which is dedicated for different kind of application, like targeted drug delivery, wound selling, or some kind of application. So that's why we choose the random cell lines. And then all these things, you can show that very high toxicity observed for 3T3L1, whereas other three, they are showing excellent cytotoxicity behavior here, especially in MDCK and N2A cell lines. Then we again did on the antimicrobial studies. You can see they exhibit the very good antimicrobial zone of inhibition for all these things. You can show the E. coli, then Bacillus and Violatium. You can see all these three, the zone of inhibition is extremely good compared to the standard methods. And recently we communicated the paper. We are still waiting for the result. We did on onion peels. We took the onion peels because that is produced a lot of things. We took these onion peels because if you go to any markets, you can easily get these onion peels, and also garlic peels. And we took these kind of onion peels and garlic peels because as it is, they are antimicrobial in nature. We took the onion peels, we subjected to pyrolysis, we synthesized the nanoparticle, then we treated that onion peels based nanoparticle into E. coli cell. You can see the left side is the untreated one, and right side is the CNS treated. And you can see the schematic representation, how you can take the bacteria, and you can see the CNS, and you can do the physical interaction. Then bacteria CNS is aggregate, and we just ruptured these things, and you can see the damage of bacterial membrane we did, and you can see that CNS is an excellent material for such kind of antimicrobial mechanism. So you can use them for a lot of applications using these kind of things. And we already patented this onion, garlic peels and all, because they are, you can go to my Google Scholar, you can see the lot of nearly 4 or 5 papers we published only on the onion peels, because it's an excellent material for various applications. So still a lot of things you can do with the onion peel based nanoparticle. And again, we did a lot of survey on these things. You can see the causative factors for the development of antimicrobial resistance. There's a very beautiful review we published on nanostructures and nano objects, where we told that why the bio-based materials are very important for antimicrobial resistance, where we listed a lot of studies on antimicrobial. We reviewed very nicely on human beings, like if you take animals in agriculture, aquaculture and veterinary, then medicine, which is prescription, patient pressure, then over-counter sales, then environment, like water, soil, wildlife, then globalization, which is travel, migration, trace, then medical tourism, like patient movement, hospital cleanliness, food aspect, and R&D failure, which is of the profit, difficult and complex. It's a lot of things involved in such kind of antimicrobial thing. And these kind of antimicrobial resistance are very important, that they are very beautiful subject to study. There's a lot of things to be discovered and lot of things to be, lot of problem to be resolved, because now Corona is the pandemic situation. There's a lot of vaccines research is very important, and these kind of carbon nanospheres are an excellent material for such kind of vaccines. You can antivirus, you can find out using these kind of carbon nanospheres, tagging with some kind of materials. So a lot of studies are going on these things in collaboration with the Indian Council of Medical Research. We already submitted one grant to Department of Biotechnology for along with ICMR to work on such kind of materials for finding out the antiviral properties of these corona COVID-19. You can also use such kind of material, which is already present, is Lycogel. You can see that before applying this gel and after, but the problem is this very expensive one. And see, this material is already available, where you can use the cosmetics. It's a billion-dollar industries, but this is very expensive, and the toxicity, it's a Lycogel is a very good, but the cost is the issue. Instead of that, you can use the waste to wealth based carbon nanospheres for such kind of application. So a lot of things can be done. You can healing of scars, wounds, and burns using this. So it's not so report on such kind of bio-waste material. So we can take a PhD work on just for bio-waste material for wound dressing or scars and burns, whatever these things. It's a lot of application in such kind of waste material. So a lot of nano sizing of drugs can be done. You can increase the surface area. If you try to increase surface area, there's a lot of ways to increase the surface area of those kind of. You can do the activation. You can do the template, hard template, soft template approach. You can activate that with the different material, different this one. So many techniques involved to increase the surface area. Then you can enhance the solubility, then increase rate of dissolution, increase oral bioavailability in future. You don't need to take a very big tablet. You can take a very small nano tablet for all these things, because this is a rapid onset therapeutic action. Then decrease the dose is needed. So you'll be happy, because nobody like to take a very big tablet. Then decrease fed fasted variability and discrete patient to patient variability, because since it is nanoparticle, it is one medicine for everything. Otherwise, you can see that you have to test the patient whether he is having that condition, or whether this patient is not good for this condition. It's a lot of side effects. All those things is avoid using the nano sizing of drugs. Then again, people are using nano thermometers for measuring the temperature, and also you can do the thermal image of a healthy and cancerous breast using nanoparticles. But the available techniques is smaller quantum dots, which is a very expensive method and expensive technology. So now these kind of carbon nanospheres, you can reduce the size of the nanoparticle. As I already told, we synthesized 20 to 30 nanometer. Recently, we published a paper where we synthesized the nanoparticle using some different technology, where we can able to reduce the nanoparticle size to less than 10 nanometer. We got around 5 to 7 nanometer, where we called as a carbon quantum dots, because quantum dot is all about less than 10 nanometers. So we called it as a carbon quantum dot, which is a very fascinating research nowadays. Many people are working on carbon quantum dot. So similar carbon quantum dot, which is from waste to wealth technology, you can use it for such kind of application. So that's a very important area of research. So you can use it for such kind of biomedical applications. So there's a lot of applications available. So I'm not listing all those things because there is we are working on supercapacitors where we are making a very low cost batteries, and we are also working on water purification. I already told you, with collaboration with many departments, and we are also working on catalysis, where it's very important because you are most of the reaction you are using palladium carbon material as a catalytic agent. But these kind of, when you are using rare earth metal like palladium, which is very expensive. So what we did is we mixed palladium carbon nanospheres, where dosage of the palladium is drastically reduced when you put carbon nanospheres into that. So that's a very huge, because even if you reduce 10% of the palladium loading, which is giving a $1 million saving for the industry. So it gives very nice result. You can get 99% of yield when you use palladium carbon nanosphere based catalyst. So again, we are working on targeted drug delivery with combination of PGIMER, that is a Chandigarh, this one Postgraduate Medical Research Center, one of the premier institute. They are working on this material for targeted drug delivery, and in collaboration with various institutions, we are working on many biomedical applications. Still, a lot of things needs to be tested because with our limitations, because we are mainly expert in physics and chemistry part of nanoparticles. The biomedical, we need a lot of collaboration, lot of discussions. We need, so that if anybody is interested who they want to work with us on these kind of things, we are happy to collaborate. And also you can come to our lab, we can discuss with us, and we can work together, and we can publish a lot of patents, and we can create the devices for the mankind. So this is the one beautiful slide. When we are telling about technology, we have to make sure that, that's why I told waste to wealth material. We are destroying the mother earth. See, when man, if evolution theory is true, then man is in a form of monkey, then forest is at the bottom. You can see how our forest looks like. But as evolution takes place, you can see the last slide, when we are on this position, you can see the bottom is tried to destroy all our mother nature. So when we destroy, we have to suffer everything, all the natural phenomena, the nature. If you protect nature, nature will protect us. So we have to make sure that we are not destroying the nature in the name of technology or in the name of success. So that's the main thing. Even worse, this is how human evolution might take place, because now we are more addicted to the mobile. So that's why in future, if evolution theory is really true, you might have this like eyes set downwards to look directly into the phone, then a small brain as thinking will be done by the Google, then small legs as no need to go anywhere, because nowadays everything we are ordering online, and special long thumbs to fill status calling on Android. This is just a very beautiful cartoon in the Google. So with this, I acknowledge my funding body, especially Department of Biotechnology, especially DST Nano Mission, who funded for such kind of work. So I acknowledge them because it is their support where we can do a lot of nano-related things. And also I thank Dr. Manjunath and other colleagues from Department of Biotechnology, Oxford College of Engineering, for inviting me here. And this is my group, because I am presenting the data given by them, because they are working day and night to give this kind of results. The bottom line, they are all from my graduated. Some of them are working, and some of them are doing PhD. Some of them are master student. And the middle line, some of them are doing PhD at abroad, and some of them are doing PhD. And the top one, my left and right, they are my they were my postdoc earlier, and both of them are settled in foreign now. So they are also my collaborators for various fields. So thank you very much. This is my mail IDs, and you can call me at any time. And welcome to my lab anytime you need. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And we have some queries from the participants.
Yeah, sure.
Sir, first is like, which method is used for functionalization of NPS with coumarin?
No, it's just a physical mixing. There is no way this one. We just disperse the coumarin into a nanoparticle using water as a solvent. Then we sonicate, ultrasonicate for 6 to 8 hours, 10 hours. Then we again did the FESM images.
Okay. So the next is, can we tag radioisotopes to these NPS for biomedical applications?
That we have to check. We haven't checked it. We have to try it. If anybody is interested in such kind of thing, I'm happy to work with them
Okay.
because we never worked on that.
What are the side effects of the NPS?
No, there is no side effects because they are coming from the natural things. We are not adding any chemicals to this. So they are very natural materials. They are directly coming from the bio waste because it's from the nature. So there is no side effects. It's not like a carbon nanotube where they are very toxic in nature.
Okay. So the next query is, if you are using combustion method for natural compounds, what will be the fate of secondary metabolites which are pharmacologically active?
I'm not sure about that part, pharmacological part, because see, when you do the pyrolysis method, you will end up only with majority of the carbon and then few amounts of oxygen left. So then you have to, if you want to add some functional group, because when you want to work it on pharmacologically application, you need some functionalized group because you directly cannot use this nanoparticle for your application. So you have to do some functionalize. For example, you can use the potassium hydroxide for functionalize. Then you can create the OH group on the nanoparticle, and then you can put those materials, whatever the material you want to use. Then you have to check because that, as I already told, biomedical side only antimicrobial and some random cell lines we tested for these things. There is a systematic study is required. I already working with Dr. Manjunath. We have finished one work with him. Still, we have to publish. Such kind of collaboration is really required to dig more into the biomedical application side.
Okay, sir. Does the carbon architecture remains unique in all plant materials or they are varied?
No, they are varying. That, as I already told, the main criteria for selecting bio-waste material is the lignin content. That's not easy to find out the lignin content because you have to use sophisticated technology, because you have to search the literature, because so many scientists working on the agricultural side, they are not on the nano side. So there is so many report on bio-waste materials, especially people are working on agricultural research. So you have to find out those literature where they found out the lignin content of various bio-waste materials. So you have to choose the high lignin content material. So in that only you can get the very good spherical shape. But many of these things, some cases, even though lignin content is very high, but they are not porous in nature because their porous values are like a macroporous material. Because some material we ended up with macroporous, some in microporous, some in mesoporous. It's depending on each waste material. And it's not that you cannot generalize the statement that, okay, if I take all the bio-waste material, I will end up with all these kind of results. It's not like that. Each bio-waste material is unique in terms of this one. For example, if you take a coconut fiber sticks, the broomstick you take a broomstick, make a powder of that, and you make a nanoparticle, you never get the powder, spherical particle. You always get a fiber shape that is called as a coconut fiber. So initial shape itself is a fiber shape. When you make a nanoparticle, surprisingly, you are getting fiber shape on this. Although it is from the bio-waste, it is we have did all the pyrolysis. So shape is really unique with respect to the bio-waste material.
So the next query is what property is attributed to the carbon particles?
Regarding application or?
I think.
See, regarding whenever you are talking about biomedical application, the carbon becomes the pore. See, carbon is not a thing. See, so many people are using the charcoal. They are making these pyrolysis and all. It's not a new invention. This has existed for millions of years. So only the uniqueness of the bio-waste material, when you pyrolyze, when carbon becomes porous. That's why it's called as a porous nanocarbons. Here, carbon is not a unique carbon nanoparticle, but the main highlight of this research is the porosity. These porous structures, they are very unique for all the applications, because people are, whenever you require any porosity, people are doping some silicon material to get the porous material. But here, nature itself has given that beautiful structure. So you don't need to add any material. So you can just take a bio-waste material with a high lignin content, pyrolysis, and your carbon becomes porous. So that's the advantage of porous nanocarbon by using these methods.
So participants, whoever is having any queries, you can ask now. Others, whoever is to ask any queries. You can unmute yourself and you can post your queries.
Dr. Hegde, thank you for a really good talk today. I was wondering, I joined the session a little bit late, so can you please explain a little bit more on how the carbon content is increasing when you increase the temperature?
Yeah, as I already told, yeah, maybe you told that you joined later. In the earlier slide, I told that whenever you increase the temperature, the material goes towards graphitic nature. Then see, when you are very near to this weight loss, when you take a thermal gravimetric analysis, when you are very close to the this weight loss region, not all the material has been evaporated. Because of that, your carbon percentage is less, because since it is from the natural material, you have a lot of other things like potassium, then sulfur, then calcium, all those things present. And because of them, they are also contributing towards the total weight percentage. Carbon percentage is less. But when you go very high temperature, all those material volatile components will go away, and you will end up with only carbon and the oxygen. And if you go more further, because in our laboratory we can do only until 1000, but if you go more temperature like 1500, 2000, even oxygen content also reduces, then you will end up only with a pure carbon. And because of that, carbon percentage is extremely high at higher temperatures.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, like the elemental composition of the material is still the same, but because you're able to increase the temperature, you're removing the other impurities and your carbon.
Perfect. Correct.
Is that right?
Correct. Because at that temperature, no other material will sustain. And again, we did the thermal gravimetric analysis of the nanoparticle itself. Once we create the nanoparticle, that data I have not shown. I did the thermal gravimetric analysis from room temperature to 1000 degrees. And in that case, it is almost like a flat. There is no weight loss taking place. That means it's completely, everything is converted. So it is just showing the straight graph at 100%.
Can you also elaborate a little bit more about carbon nanoparticles and how it compares to like lipid nanoparticles maybe?
I'm not so expert on lipid nanoparticle. We have not tested on comparison purposes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So on behalf of the management, staff and students of the Department of Biotechnology, the Oxford College of Engineering, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Dr. Gurumurthy Hegde for the wonderful lecture and giving an insight about nanomaterials from biowaste, its application and its future perspective. Thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful lecture. And I would also like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our chairman, Shri SNVL Narasimha Raju Garu, for his continuous support. And I would like to extend our gratitude to the principal, Dr. Aravind A.S. and our director, Dr. Amarnath K. for their support and guidance. I would also like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. B.K. Manjunath, Professor and Head, Department of Biotechnology, for his continuous support and for his guidance and for his help in organizing this event, motivation and support. So I would also like to extend my thanks to all my dear colleagues and to all the students, and a special mention to our student Rohit for his technical support. And last but not the least, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to all the participants who are attending this session. Thank you one and all. So tomorrow the session will be starting by 1:15. So all of you, the link will be sent to the group as well as in the mail. All of you please join. Thank you. Sir, we are ending the session. Gurumurthy.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you,
sir. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.